Todd Monken's name has surfaced in coaching rumors before, but the events that led to John Harbaugh's firing made one thing clear. Monken is no longer just an assistant. He's a kingmaker. The Ravens' decision to cut ties with a Super Bowl-winning coach to retain control over their staff, rather than let him keep Monken, is almost unheard of. Now, Monken's immediate interview with the Browns has taken on a new meaning. It's not just about offensive strategy. It's about power. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. And where the league's next quarterback revolution could begin. What Cleveland is quietly orchestrating goes beyond filling a sideline vacancy. From Monken's explosive resume with Lamar Jackson to pitchers' technical grooming of Joe Burrow, every candidate reflects a piece of the puzzle for developing SHEDEUR Sanders into a franchise centerpiece. With Reeves bringing collegiate polish and Schwartz safeguarding a top-tier defense, the Browns are pivoting toward a fully integrated, QB-first philosophy, one that could tilt the balance of power in the AFC North for years to come. The Cleveland Browns just took the NFL's offseason playbook and shredded it. While most teams would fire a head coach and enter damage control, the Browns took a completely different approach. They didn't hit reset, they hit blueprint. And what's being sketched out in real time is less about who's calling plays next season and more about building the perfect developmental pipeline for one name, SHEDEUR Sanders. Let's call it what it is. This isn't a coaching search. It's a setup, a high-level, strategic positioning move to create a quarterback-first culture unlike anything the franchise has seen before. Because this time, Cleveland isn't chasing a coach to fix problems. They're assembling minds to build something new, something built around quarterback intelligence, schematic flexibility, and long-term consistency. And when you look at the 5 candidates who've been formally interviewed, Dan Pitcher, Todd Monken, Tommy Rees, Jim Schwartz, and Aiden Dunn, it's not just a diverse list. It's a deliberate one. Start with Pitcher. You don't just happen to interview Joe Burrow's quarterback coach unless you're serious about developing a young passer from the ground up. Pitcher's fingerprints are all over Burrow's evolution into one of the league's most accurate and efficient quarterbacks. And the fact that Pitcher has a professional history with GM Andrew Berry, that adds another layer. That's not just a football fit. That's alignment. And in a front office where consistency has been elusive, that matters. But if Pitcher brings developmental calm, Monken brings explosive design. Todd Monken's stock has gone to the roof in recent months. And not because of interviews or PR spin, but because of what actually happened in Baltimore. John Harbaugh, one of the longest tenured and most respected head coaches in the league, was shown the door because he refused to fire Monken. That's not just loyalty. That's a statement about Monken's value inside NFL buildings. He didn't just call plays. He ran an offense that elevated Lamar Jackson to MVP levels in 2023, and then kept the team competitive in 2024 even when Jackson was sidelined. That's not plug-and-play. That's high-level coaching. That's adapting a system to fit your quarterback and still getting results when the plan changes. The Browns didn't wait to see where Monken would land. They were the first team to request an interview. And if you're reading between the lines, it's clear. They're not just interested in Monken. They're interested in what his presence could lead to. Because here comes the twist. If Monken is part of the plan, Harbaugh might be too. It sounds far-fetched until you consider Harbaugh's background. Lifelong Browns fan, Super Bowl champion, freshly available, and most importantly, someone who already has chemistry with Monken. If Cleveland want to win now and build for later, a Harbaugh-Monken partnership backed by a top-5 defense is about as turnkey as it gets. And the Browns know it. Meanwhile, Tommy Rees is getting more attention than people expected, and it's not hard to understand why if you dig deeper. Yes, the Browns' offense struggled in 2024, but Stefanski's playbook was outdated, and Deshaun Watson's decline didn't give Rees much to work with. What's key here is not what Rees did under Stefanski. It's where he came from before that. Rees studied under Nick Saban at Alabama, a program built on producing NFL-ready quarterbacks. That's where he learned system structure, pace, spacing, everything a young quarterback like SHEDEUR Sanders would need to succeed. And despite the team's performance, Reeves has already generated interest from major college programs. That doesn't happen if coaches think you're a dead end. So when Cleveland keeps him in the conversation, that's intentional. That's forward thinking. That's not a panic reaction to bad numbers. It's a long-term bet on someone who knows how to build. Then there's Jim Schwartz. His inclusion in the head coaching interviews raised some eyebrows, mostly because he's not an offensive mind. But look closer, and his role in all this becomes obvious. He's not the next head coach. He's the foundation. The Browns' defense was top 4 in the league in 2024, and they got there with almost no help from the offense. That kind of imbalance can tear teams apart. But under Schwartz, the defense didn't flinch. They carried games. They kept the team competitive. And more importantly, Schwartz is still under contract, which means the Browns can block him from being poached while they rebuild the offense. That gives them continuity, stability, a defense that's already playoff caliber staying intact while the other side of the ball catches up. That's not just smart, it's necessary. Because in the AFC North, you can't rebuild slowly. The Bengals are still centered around Joe Burrow, but that roster's taken hits. The Steelers have no quarterback clarity. The Ravens just lost their leadership core. The timing couldn't be better for Cleveland to take a real shot at the top. And with a likely top 5 draft pick and a staff built for quarterback development, they're in position to draft Sanders and do it the right way. No rushing. No chaos. No rookie thrown into a broken system. Instead, a system tailored for him by a team that planned before it acted. Even Aiden Dunn's interview plays a role here. While less likely to land the job, his presence on the list shows Cleveland's thoroughness. They're not looking at one mold. They're evaluating every serious mind available, offensive and defensive. That's how you make the best hire, not just the flashiest one. And now we're at a crossroads. The Browns have something rare in their hands, a chance to reset the franchise without starting from zero, a chance to keep what works, like Schwartz in the defense, while strategically building what's been missing. And if they execute on this vision, it's not just about 2025. It's about every year after that. Because building around Sanders doesn't mean drafting a star and hoping he saves a team. It means crafting an environment where the quarterback doesn't have to. One where the system supports him, where he's developed by coaches who've done it before, where the weight isn't on him alone. That's what Monken would bring. What pitcher could shape, what Reeves could evolve, and what Schwartz would anchor. It's a complete framework, and it could change everything. So now we wait for the hire, for the draft, for the dominoes to fall. But what's clear is this. The Browns aren't just interviewing coaches. They're designing the next decade of their franchise. And if you followed this team long enough, you know how rare that level of clarity is. No desperation, no drama, just alignment. And for once, a front office that looks like it knows exactly where it's going. So what do you think? Will Cleveland pull the trigger on this QB-first revolution? Is SHEDEUR Sanders the future they've been waiting for? And who's the right hire to lead the way? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you're watching this chess match unfold with your jaw on the floor. Share this with every fan who still thinks the Browns are stuck in the past. And subscribe if you want to be here when this plan finally comes together. Because this isn't just about a head coach. It's about building the version of the Browns the league's never seen before. And if they get it right, they won't just be contenders. They'll be the blueprint. The Browns aren't waiting for the league to take them seriously anymore. They're forcing the issue, after decades of playing catch-up, of cycling through quarterbacks, rebooting coaching staffs, clinging to flashes of competence before sliding back into dysfunction. They've finally stopped reacting, and they've started constructing. What we're seeing unfold in Cleveland isn't just another off-season plan. It's a system-wide recalibration, and the message is clear. This franchise is tired of surviving. It wants to start dictating. Everything they're doing, from the interviews to the draft positioning to retention of key staff, feeds into one central idea. Quarterback development is the new franchise identity. Not defense, not toughness, not tradition. Development, growth, structure, a complete pivot to building from the quarterback out. For a team that's been defined by instability at that very position, this is a radical shift, and all signs point to SHEDEUR Sanders as the centerpiece. They haven't said it publicly, and they won't. Not yet. But when you request interviews with 5 coaches tied to elite quarterback evolution, and you're sitting on a likely top 5 pick, and you already know Watson isn't your long-term answer, that's not subtle. That's a neon sign. Let's go deeper into what these moves actually mean. Start with Dan Pitcher. He didn't just coach Joe Burrow. He helped shape him during the most formative stretch of his NFL career. Precision mechanics, pre-snap awareness, pocket discipline. Those aren't traits you can wing with athleticism. Those are trained, coached, repeated. Pitcher did that, and the results speak for themselves. Burrow came into the league with poise, polish, and presence, and he hasn't looked back. Now the Browns want to talk to the guy who helped build that. Why? Because SHEDEUR Sanders has a similar profile. High football IQ, natural leadership, calm under pressure, and the kind of control in the pocket that you can't teach. Unless you're Dan Pitcher. And remember, Pitcher has ties to Browns GM Andrew Berry. That's not a footnote. That's infrastructure. Coaches with aligned philosophies and history with the front office tend to get longer runways. They work faster. They install systems with fewer barriers. That matters when you're trying to onboard a rookie quarterback and change the culture at the same time. Then there's Todd Monken, who is easily the most coveted offensive mind on the market, and not just because of what he did with Lamar Jackson. The real headline is that John Harbaugh refused to fire him, and it cost Harbaugh his job. Think about the weight of that decision. A Super Bowl winning coach, one of the most respected leaders in the league, was given a clear ultimatum. He chose Monken and lost his job over it. That doesn't just highlight Monken's value. It puts him in rare territory. Coaches don't usually go out defending their coordinators unless those coordinators are indispensable. And Monken clearly is. He built a system around Lamar Jackson that amplified his strengths without making him one-dimensional. Then, when Jackson went down in 2024, he kept the offense competitive anyway. He doesn't just coach quarterbacks. He builds offenses that protect them, highlight them, and evolve with them. The Browns being the first team to request an interview with Monken, that's not just aggressive. It's calculated. They want to get in before the arms race starts. And they know that hiring Monken might be the key to unlocking something even bigger. John Harbaugh. There's buzz, real buzz, that if Cleveland gives Monken a home, Harbaugh might come with him. And it makes sense. Harbaugh's loyalty to Monken was proven. His Cleveland roots are well known. He's available. And a team with Monken's offense, Schwartz's defense, and Harbaugh's leadership, that's a contender. Immediately, even if Sanders doesn't start week 1. That's the beauty of this plan. It's flexible. It's not all or nothing. If Watson has to start early, the system will function. If Sanders is ready by week 6, they won't have to rebuild mid-season. They're creating modularity, a setup where multiple quarterback timelines can coexist. That's smart football. Now let's talk about Tommy Rees. He's the outlier on this list, the youngest, the least accomplished, but also the one with the clearest developmental arc. His 2024 numbers with the Browns' offense were rough, but no one's pretending that was his system. He was stuck under Stefanski's rigid playbook. His quarterback was declining. The structure was broken. And yet, Cleveland still wants to interview him. That tells you something. Rees didn't lose the locker room. He didn't lose the belief of the front office. And behind the scenes, he was likely pushing for modern, flexible offense designs that just never saw daylight under Stefanski. Before Cleveland, he worked under Nick Saban at Alabama, the NFL quarterback pipeline. He understands structure. He understands fundamentals. And he understands the psychology of high-performing quarterbacks. At just 33, he's already been tapped by college programs for leadership roles. That's not because of hype. That's because of vision. If the Browns want to go younger, more innovative, and play the long game with their next head coach, Rees is very much in play, especially if they view him as someone who can grow with Sanders rather than manage around him. Then you've got Jim Schwartz, the stabilizer. The Browns' defense under Schwartz in 2024 was ranked 4th overall, 4th, while the offense crumbled. That doesn't happen unless your coordinator is elite. Schwartz didn't just keep the defense functional. He kept it dominant. And now that he's under contract, the Browns can block other teams from luring him away. That's a quiet but crucial move. If you're rebuilding one side of the ball, you better keep the other locked down. Schwartz gives them that foundation, and his presence adds credibility to any head coach hire, young or veteran. Whether it's Rees or Harbaugh or Pitcher, they won't have to worry about the defense falling apart while the offense evolves. Aiden Dunn's inclusion is more about due diligence. He's a rising star as Seattle's defensive coordinator, and the Browns bringing him in just reinforces how thorough this process is. They're not putting all their chips on one bet. They're vetting, listening, challenging their assumptions. And that's what a real franchise does. Now zoom out. What does all of this mean? It means Cleveland is done being reactionary. They're not picking a coach just to survive next season. They're assembling a philosophy, one where quarterback development is prioritized at every level: scouting, coaching, play design, culture. Whether or not they draft SHEDEUR Sanders, they're building the structure for someone like him. Someone smart, technical, calm, coachable. That's the profile. And when you build the system first, before you plug in a rookie, you give yourself a real shot at long-term success. That's what the Browns are doing right now. They're preparing for a quarterback who hasn't even walked into the building yet. And that's how you win. This offseason isn't about hype. It's about execution. And if they land the right coach, draft the right quarterback, and keep the defense intact, Cleveland goes from maybe to absolutely, not just in 2025, but for the next 10 years. Here's the thing that nobody wants to admit about the Browns right now. They might actually be the smartest team in the room. Let that sit for a second. For years, Cleveland has been a cautionary tale. The franchise people reference when talking about dysfunction, wasted talent, and how not to run a front office. But now, all the signs point to something entirely different. Not just competence, but intention. A long-term plan. And not just a plan for next season, but for the next decade. Everything they're doing, every interview, every strategic attention, every quiet move behind the scenes, is aimed at one goal: building the perfect environment for a quarterback to thrive. Not just survive, not just manage games. Thrive. And the name looming behind all of it is SHEDEUR Sanders. They haven't said it publicly. They don't need to. The strategy says it for them. Because this coaching search isn't about who's going to wear the headset on Sunday afternoons. It's about who can take a young, talented quarterback with a high football IQ and elevate him to an MVP-level leader. And when you start piecing together what each candidate brings to the table, it's not hard to see what Cleveland is really doing. Dan Pitcher brings elite-level developmental experience. He helped craft Joe Burrow's fundamentals: footwork, pocket mechanics, decision-making, all the things that separate a good quarterback from a franchise quarterback. And it worked. Burrow came into the league and immediately played like a vet. That's not magic. That's coaching. That's system support. That's development. Now, with a likely top 5 pick and a quarterback in SHEDEUR Sanders who shares a lot of those same cerebral traits, the Browns are going back to the source. They want the coach who built Burrow's foundation to help lay the groundwork for their own rookie QB's success. And the fact that Pitcher has a connection to GM Andrew Berry, that just makes the transition smoother. Less friction. More alignment. Then there's Todd Monken, the chess master. Monken didn't just call plays in Baltimore. He reinvented their offensive identity. He took Lamar Jackson, already an MVP, and made him better, more efficient, more unpredictable. And when Jackson got hurt in 2024, Monken didn't crumble. He adapted. He made backup quarterbacks look serviceable. He kept defenses guessing. He kept Baltimore in games. That's system resilience. That's coaching IQ. And let's not forget, John Harbaugh refused to fire Monken when pressured by the Raven front office. That cost Harbaugh his job. Let that sink in. A head coach gave up his tenure to defend an assistant. That doesn't happen unless that assistant is the heart of your operation. The Browns immediately requested an interview with Monken the second he became available. No hesitation. That's not curiosity. That's urgency. That's recognition of rare value. And the ripple effect? Hiring Monken may open the door for Harbaugh himself, a Super Bowl winning head coach. a known culture builder, a Cleveland native with unfinished business. A Monk and Harbaugh reunion in Cleveland? That's not a rumor. It's a real scenario. And it could completely rewire the power structure in the AFC North overnight. Let's not overlook Tommy Rees, either. At first glance, it might look like the Browns are reaching by giving him a head coaching interview. But scratch beneath the surface, and his inclusion makes perfect sense. Rees was handed an impossible situation in 2024. A declining Deshaun Watson. A rigid playbook he didn't design. A system stuck in the mud. He never got to run his own offense. But before that, he was working under Nick Saban at Alabama, one of the best environments in the world for quarterback development. Rees isn't just an up-and-comer. He's been through the elite prep school of NFL systems. He's modern. He's analytical. He knows how to talk to quarterbacks, teach them, and elevate their understanding of the game. At 33, he represents a long-game hire, someone who could grow with SHEDEUR Sanders rather than trying to manage around him. If Cleveland wants a head coach who can build a partnership with their quarterback for the next 10 years, Rees is a serious option. Then there's Jim Schwartz, the defensive anchor. He's not in this search to take over the team, but his presence signals something important: stability. Schwartz ran the fourth-ranked defense in the league in 2024 with next to zero offensive support. That's not just impressive. It's a testament to what he's built in Cleveland, a defensive unit that can go toe-to-toe with anyone. And now that he's under contract, the Browns can block other teams from poaching him. That matters, because if you're bringing in a rookie quarterback, you need a great defense behind him. You need to win low-scoring games while your offense develops. You need breathing room for mistakes. Schwartz provides all of that, and his continued presence gives any incoming offensive staff one massive advantage. They don't have to fix everything at once. Aiden Dunn's interview might seem like an outlier, but underscores just how thorough Cleveland's being. They're not ignoring anyone. They're checking every box. Doan is a respected mind, and even if he doesn't get the job, his inclusion shows that the Browns aren't limiting themselves. They're surveying every corner of the coaching landscape to make sure the person they hire fits exactly what they're trying to build. And that's the theme here. Fit, not resume, not name recognition. Fit, because the Browns aren't looking for a coach who can manage the chaos. They're looking for someone who can end it. They want cohesion, development, growth. They want to bring in a quarterback, likely Sanders, who isn't being asked to save the franchise on day one. They want to develop him with structure and patience, not desperation and dysfunction. They're trying to do something few franchises ever pull off: engineer a sustainable quarterback-centric culture before the quarterback arrives. And if they get this right, it changes everything. The AFC North won't know what hit it. Baltimore's in transition. Pittsburgh's still adrift. Cincinnati leans entirely on Joe Burrow. Cleveland? They could become the most balanced team in the division overnight. Top 5 defense. Young, coachable quarterback. Offensive minds who know how to teach, not just scheme. This is what the blueprint looks like. And for once, the Browns seem committed to following it. Not improvising, not guessing, but executing. Quietly, deliberately, strategically. So now it's your turn. Do you believe this is the real turning point for Cleveland? Is Sanders the future of this franchise? And who do you trust to lead him and this team into the next era? Sound off in the comments. Like, if you're seeing what the Browns are building, share this with someone who still thinks they're stuck in the past. And subscribe to stay ahead of every twist in this story. Because if they land the right coach, the right QB, and hold this defense together, the Browns aren't just getting better. They're coming for everything.